And I tell anyone who has a mentor and I say, when's the last time they gave you constructive feedback? And they're like, oh, they haven't. Then we have a conversation about that. They're not helping you.
Welcome to LED, Leadership with Ed. I'm Ed McGill, co-founder and partner of McGill Jungie Wealth Management, and I'm continuing my journey of, 40, 50 years of understanding leadership, people that have shaped me, and how I can have a better impact on those around me. And, we're excited today. On today's show, we have the great Sara Kurovski, who's going to be joining us, and she's going to be talking about a couple of different things. We're going to talk about how some of the best leaders I've ever run across are actually in the nonprofit space. So she's going to talk about her journey there. We're going to talk about how her being the mayor for, I wrote this down, 16 years has helped shape her leadership skills in dealing with constituents and some of the opportunities that's allowed that she's been able to do. And then also kind of the 3 M's, how she's been a mom, how she's been the mayor, and then she's also CEO of Make-A-Wish. So we're going to talk about that, and we'll get a shout out to Todd, her husband. There just was no M that really rhymed with that. So a wife too. So we'll add the W there. But first of all, I want to thank everyone that's joined us in this inaugural year of LED. People have been watching it on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. And so just make sure you subscribe, you make comments on the podcast. These shows drop every other Wednesday, bright and early in the morning. So appreciate, again, everyone joining in. And now we can say we'd like to welcome Sara Kurovski. Sara, welcome to LED.
Thank you so much, Ed.
You just won the big election, so you get the mayor for 4 more years. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yes, so have been mayor for 12 years and just got reelected, which will be the total for 16 when that's completed. So very exciting.
That is exciting. And did you go to, now when we talk about your journey, did you go to United Way first, or were you mayor first, or did those happen simultaneously? Because Sara and I met where she was the chairperson of the United Way Tocqueville Society, which Des Moines is all in on United Way, such a great organization, and that's where I first met Sara. And if anyone knows me in our firm, how we decide who we sponsor, who we support in the nonprofit area is we always support and follow great energy, great people, great excitement. And so when Sara called, I'm like, now this person's fun. I like her energy. This is great. She smiles and laughs a lot. And then McGill Jungie got really ingrained in United Way. But were you at United Way first or the mayor first?
I was mayor first, and it was really a part of my journey that led me to United Way through panel interactions with Mary Sellers that got me there.
So Mary was at the time, and now has come back, was president of United Way. But how does someone decide they're going to be the mayor? Let's start there. How did that happen? And you come home and say, Todd, I think I'm tired of running into the potholes. I'm tired of this. I'm going to run for mayor. But tell us how someone becomes a mayor, and tell them your city.
Yeah, so I am the mayor in Pleasant Hill, and it was never on the plan, never in college that we'll graduate, we'll get a job, and we'll run for office. It was just an evolution. And part of that was, one, having a great mentor. When my first job out of college, I was at Metro Waste Authority, and Tom Haddon was the executive director. And after a few months there, he said, you kind of get this city local government stuff. You should get involved in your city. And so Todd and I were married.
But first, how did he see that though? So when you said he saw it, so what were you doing for Metro Waste at the time?
I had started as a public relations intern for the landfill.
Okay.
Yes, it is a job, and it was one of the most amazing experiences, and learned so much. Engineering, recycling, all the central Iowa cities were members of it. And I always took initiative and wanted to take on more and do more. And Tom kind of saw that and encouraged me to get involved in my city, which is Pleasant Hill, where I live. It's a suburb of Des Moines. And kind of went to City Hall and said, hi, I live here. How can I get involved? And they were all shocked to see a young woman showing up saying, how can I get involved in my government? And it really took
Were
off.
you really only 22 or 23 up there,
Yes.
24-ish?
Yes, I was very young and just wanted to be involved. And at the same time, I was working on my master's in public administration at Drake. So those two kind of went together very well. And they eventually asked me to sit on a committee as a resident liaison, and it grew from there. And at some point, I did end up on Plan and Zoning Commission, which if you ever want to know what's going on in your city, not only are city council meetings great, but Plan and Zoning is where the action's at.
That's where all the good stuff's going
Yes,
on. Okay.
yes. And we kind of had a controversial topic that I was just very consistent on, that these are the rules, this is the process. I know you hear these rumors, but here's really the steps and the actual activity. And at that time, the former mayor had reached out and said, let's meet. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. And ended up meeting with him and a couple of others. And he was filling a vacancy of the former mayor. And he said, I'm not running and we want you to run. And I said,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I said, no, I'm not qualified. And he said, Sarah, you have your master's and I have my GED. And that was a really eye-opening moment for me, and we'll never forget that. It's kind of the first time somebody really, who I looked up to, showed me, no, you're actually my equal or should be my peer, and encouraging me to take that next step. And so I will never forget that. And
so you actually had two great mentors right from the start. The one from the Metro Waste that saw some things in you and said, get involved. And how cool was it of this individual to see your energy, your excitement, but also the skill set and say, no, you can do this.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have run without either of those individuals just really encouraging me. And eventually did say yes, and so ran and got elected. And the fun fact that I remind the boys is the day after Election Day, our youngest turned 1. So it was a very busy time in our household, and that's why Todd is a saint.
That is awesome. And I have to think, out of all the podcasts we've done this year, you are the first one that was ever in charge of landfills.
Yes,
So
I win the award.
Now you win the award, and that's actually a good fact that you could probably win a lot of things on. But it also shows that, to have an impact, you didn't have to. Well, I went to Drake as well, too. And I think you were Truman State undergrad, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that you just had the regular education, getting your master's, and then had this job with someone believe in you that now has led to some tremendous opportunities and service in so many different areas. That's just a great story. It can happen anywhere, can't it?
It absolutely can. It's showing up, it's doing the job, following through, but also doing your homework. Anyone knows in the Metro from working with me as mayor that I read the board packets, I read all of the materials. I will have all of the questions, and it is a running joke with a few of the mayors. Just call Sarah ahead of time. She can brief us. But doing the work shows everyone else that you're here and you will be responsible and you will participate. And then good things tend to follow.
Awesome. So Mary Sellers is the great leader of United Way, which obviously a huge national organization. Des Moines is one of the leading, I guess you call it chapters or groups in there. So she saw your work where? So it sounds like now she became a mentor and tagged you. So how did that happen?
I was actually working for Come and Go with Kyle Krause on some projects.
Another great leader here in Des Moines.
Yes,
yeah.
And just another incredible opportunity. And I was on a panel, I believe out some side of something in West Des Moines with women leaders, and Mary was on it, and we got to know each other. And then we ended up on another panel. And I eventually had just said, can we get together? And we did. And after that, just a relationship bloomed, and I got to know more about her. And then the Tocqueville Society position opened, and conversation started. And it was just an incredible opportunity to really blend my passion for the community and relationship building together, and along with the work that United Way was doing. It was such a perfect fit. And that's when I got to meet you.
That's right. That was awesome. I remember those days and you coming to the office and telling us what Tocqueville was, and then just some of the different events. And then we were able to, you called and said, would you sponsor this? And we're like, yeah, we're kind of small at that time. We
and look at you now.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate and blessed, and the charitable part and just being involved in the community has been such a big part. But I would say that United Way was one of the really big first forays into that for our firm, and just helped create the the brand for McGill-Jungie. What I think we're known for now is that not only from a monetary standpoint, but we like showing up to all the events and actually being a part of the community. How long were you at United Way, and who was mentoring and helping you? And is that where you met some even additional leaders outside of United Way? Like when you're calling on Tocqueville members, is that where other people start taking an interest in what you were doing and helping you along the way?
Yes, and it's just kind of dependent on what was going on and what was the situation. And I was at United Way just shy of 6 years, and Melanie Campbell was an incredible boss. Loved being on her team.
Yeah, she's awesome.
And you learn something from everyone, the good examples and the bad examples, what you want to be like and what you don't want to be like. I was very lucky to have some incredible good examples along my journey. But, individuals in the metro, as you get to know them, and we're helping them with their giving, but then also for regional boards I was on for my mayor role, the paths just continued to cross and interweave. And of course, that was during COVID. So a very challenging time in the community for everyone, whether you were still going to work or working from home and balancing school and just finding the ways to network and still complete regional projects. I think that really helped demonstrate one of my skill sets was just to get it done and to not let up the gas, and of course bringing great partners into the conversation. Nobody does anything alone, and so through partnerships and collaboration, I think that really helped just network and meet more and more individuals who wanted to do good in Central Iowa.
You've always been known as a GSD leader, which we'll say get stuff done. There's can be another acronym in the middle, and you had to be very organized with everything that you were balancing. And I noticed a number of times on LinkedIn or different places that you would make trips to DC with bigger groups in Des Moines. Was that through the Greater Des Moines, partnership? Was that through United Way? Was that through some of your roles? Tell us about some of the opportunities just being involved in the community then allowed you to participate in.
Yeah, and I never knew what being mayor would open the door for. And right out of the chute, I learned we were going with the Greater Des Moines Partnership every May to DC. And, I had been to DC in 8th grade, but had never gone to talk to elected officials. And so you need to brush up really quick on what you're doing. And I was in charge of setting our city's agenda for those conversations. So just making sure that I knew what was federally related, what they were working on, and also just remembering the human side, regardless of party. Elected officials do a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of hate sometimes. And so just being a human and saying thank you and thank you for serving, and that goes a long way. So just planning, showing up. And as a part of that, we were able to work. I went to DC for about 10 years asking for the completion of the funding for Southeast Connector, one of the biggest infrastructure projects in partnership with the city of Des Moines, which is MLK through downtown that will now come all the way to Pleasant Hill. And we got the final funding, and that should open in 2028. And we did not think we would see that in this lifetime.
See, and that's awesome. And for those of you that are the out-of-town listeners, that you really could just impart really anything in your city into that, like where you see something, you're like, got to be easier if we could just get to that interstate this way or through this and stuff. And so what Sarah was talking about is, these different connectors. And then what you're saying, it's DC that approves some of those bigger decisions, or the funding for those. Is that what?
Correct. Yes. It's through the build funding, and it was a $30 million to finish the project. And that's bigger than, our city's capital budget. And so we never thought we would see that done. But it will be a huge amenity for the region and a very important part of the community. So it's just going to be fantastic. But that means showing up and going and pleading your case and always following up.
Building the relationships.
Exactly. Yes.
So I think what we just heard Sarah say there was ask big, keep building those relationships, because she just said the amount of money she got to get this finished and connect to Pleasant Hill is bigger than their whole city budget. So that is awesome. And it probably was that where she walked out after she got the final yes going, okay, we just got that done. That is awesome. And to think about that, where you'll be able to show that to your boys and that legacy of just the hard work of everyone that was involved, not just you, but to say, holy cow, we actually connected different parts in a more efficient way and got the funding for that. That's incredible.
Right. And just going off of the connection and infrastructure, I never anticipated, all the years I worked on that project would bleed into my role now as CEO of Make-A-Wish. And just ironically, a couple of holiday seasons ago, we were working on Jolly Holiday Lights, and an engineer who has presented at city council meetings many a time was walking in where we were at and said, "Oh, Mayor, hi, we're so excited. Lucy's getting her wish here pretty soon." And I said, "What?" I had been at Make-A-Wish for a couple of years, and in my role, you don't see the day-to-day of every wish that's being worked on. And here, somebody I'd been working with at a professional level in the city who's working on the Southeast Connector project, one of the lead engineers, his daughter was being granted a wish that then I was overseeing in my newer role at Make-A-Wish. And I just thought, I just cannot believe these worlds are colliding the way it is. And Lucy got her wish, and they loved every minute of it at Disneyland.
See, and that is awesome, of just being a good person, helping, putting the time, putting the effort, and you just never know when the worlds will collide and things. And you probably said a prayer that night going, "Okay, thank you. That makes some sense now, how all this kind of came together."
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell us a little bit, what allowed you, or what was the impetus to make this jump from United Way to Make-A-Wish? And then also, were you ever pulled to corporate America to say, "Okay, I've done, the charitable piece or the foundational piece, helping a nonprofit." You saw other people that were on the corporate side, but you stayed in the nonprofit side. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
And I can't tell that story without referencing the first 4 years of being mayor, even probably the first 6. There were some really hard things that needed accomplished, and we had to get through a series of lawsuits that were existing before I became mayor. Went to the Supreme Court of Iowa. I've had to turn over almost every department head, so really challenging times. And then, of course, COVID and getting through that. But getting us.
And you guys have had tornadoes and other things that have happened.
I've had 2 derechos, 2 floods, a tornado, a public shooting. And so it is not for the faint of heart. And here when I ran, it was, I want to live in this great city and keep it a great city. And then, here's 30 lawsuits that are on the books. And now please prepare yourself for all these other activities.
So maybe why that other individual wasn't rerunning again and said, "Hey, Sarah, this would be really good for you. And by the way, here's the stacks of lawsuits." That had to be a little daunting because you were young at that time as well, too.
Yes. And you just lean on the experts. And I was just very upfront. I don't know this. I need to learn it. Please teach me. And I just soaked it all in, and people were patient while I asked a million questions and all the follow-ups. And I'm sure there were days where individuals were very exhausted by my questions, but I needed to understand in order to make the bigger picture decisions. I don't like to be down in the weeds that much, but when you have no understanding of what you've just walked into, you don't have any other choice, especially during a crisis situation. And there are different chains of command that happen during that as well. And so going through all of that, and I actually remember one night, Todd and his infinite wisdom, and Todd, he's so social and fun, and he is the social butterfly of the two of us. It had been a week where there had been the shooting, and there were bomb threats at the school district, and everyone was exhausted, and we were trying to figure out what was going on. And I was having nightmares about, the school having a horrific attack happen on it. And we were trying to go to bed, and Todd said, "Do you think you're going through all of this so you can be prepared to do harder things in the future?" And I was like, Todd, oh my gosh, what a neat and thoughtful moment. And I hadn't thought about it that way. And it really set me back on my heels to go, okay, I know I'm stressed, but how can I learn while I'm going through this? And I will just never forget that moment of him just pulling clarity into what we were going through. And then fast forward, working at United Way, and the Make-A-Wish position opens, and some of those individuals who I'd been working with at United Way and other community leaders reached out and said, hey, they really need you, and you could do some great work here, and you've been through crisis, and I think you should look. And I did. And the deeper I went into the mission, I was so excited and also just very energized to deliver wishes to these kids who should never have to be going through what they're going through.
Yep.
And just almost offensive to me that the organization was left in the way that they needed so much rebuilding. But it's been an honor to come in and work with the team, work with the board to say, we've got wishes to grant, and we're going to do this, and we're going to get there. And having not had the experience being mayor, would have not prepared me for some of the really hard days here. You know, a majority of kids who receive a wish are not terminal. People have that misconception because of how Make-A-Wish started, but we do have kids who do end up passing away, and those are hard days and those are hard conversations. But having the mental and the actual experience of going through really hard life experiences just prepared me to be able to handle those conversations and handle those interactions in a way that I would have never been able to without the previous experience.
So there's so many just gems and nuggets right there. First, just going back, if you're listening to this, as a spouse, as a friend, etc., the foresight that Todd had when he said that, because, as you're thinking about it and the different things he could have said, when you first started, I thought you were going to say, Todd said, hey, should you still keep doing this? Like, should we bail on this and whatever? So, and I don't know why I thought that, other than just when you first started going, like, okay, what did Todd say? Or did he try to make you laugh? And then he comes up with this great line to just say, do you think you're maybe going through this because there's going to be some bigger things coming? And it just allowed you to reflect on that, maybe accept. It still was hard, but still then accept that this, probably could lead to other things. So for those of you that are listening out there, to be thinking that so many of the things that we're going through at different stages in our life are just setting the stage for you to be prepared going forward. Two, for you, I bet your team at Make-A-Wish when you first came in could sense confidence is not arrogance is not good. Confidence is a thing to say, we can get through this. We do have wishes we need to do. We will get through this together. Did you find the team rallied around you, or were they beaten down by, some of the things that happened, which I was aware of? But tell me a little bit about the team's attitude and how you were to use your leadership to redirect that to, here's our mission of Make-A-Wish.
And all of it took time, coming in, just coming off of COVID and having 300 wishes waiting across the state of Iowa. That's a hard pull back to be able to say, how are we going to do this? Not having a strategic plan, the board being a little just misled and wondering themselves, where are we going? How are we going to overcome this? But me telling them, I've been through natural disasters. I have, had a former officer die, and we've mourned with that spouse as a team, and we can also get through this. And I remember many days, leaders at Make-A-Wish America under our federated model would check in and say, you're still coming back tomorrow, right? And I was like, yes, this is the best work. This is great work. And nobody died today. Like, there wasn't a natural disaster. So again, that experience and having something to draw upon between what's really hard and what's achievable was very helpful. And so just also delivering in terms of doing what I said it was going to do, and the follow up, and just repeating that over and over so the team would know and get to know me and be able to say, oh, she did go and do that. But then, of course, finding the right partners to also believe in us. And we were lucky enough within my first 6 months, I was working with the Jardine family, who's a great family in Iowa. And I went to them and I said, here's where the organization is at. This is where I'm taking it. This is where we're going, and I need your help. And not only will your donation help grant wishes faster, and we've got to catch up, but it will help the team believe again. And it was this very inspirational moment where you could literally, we were all standing in the front foyer, and they knew I had made the pitch, and I said, they saw that they had called the main phone line and got transferred to me, and they were all waiting, and they were standing, and I walked out and I said, they're giving us $1.965 million. We're going to grant a lot of wishes. And there were tears, and you could see everything change. Not only had we been putting in the infrastructure, but then we had a huge donation to rapidly move everything forward. So they knew people believed in them and believed in the mission. And it just has been so fantastic ever since that moment.
See, and that is so incredible, because I'm picturing everyone looking outside the window. Is she going to start crying, or those tears of joy, or tears of, oh my God, okay, this is another derecho? And that family just stepped up,
yes,
and made an impact that now has slingshotted Make-A-Wish to where they should have been all along, and maybe even further, because there's been some other great donations and things that have been happening now. So tell us a little bit more about Make-A-Wish. How many wishes is the Iowa chapter granting? And you run the whole state, if I remember correctly. Is that correct?
Yes. So I have a lot of windshield time. Everyone says, where's your office? And I say, it's in my car. But we do. We cover the entire state. And what's very interesting is a study was recently done by Make-A-Wish America with prevalence and incidence data tied to our recent census data. So they could run a study with all the critical illness codes and overlay the census data to know how many children in Iowa between the ages of 2 and 18 that we should be finding every single year. And unfortunately, and as I'm sure you're aware, Iowa's number 2 for cancer in the United States, and we see that in our oncology kiddos. But we should be finding 263 kids every single year in Iowa. And that's too big of a number. I wish we didn't have to exist, but we do. And so we are working really hard through a business strategy model and our strategic plan that the board approved in September, that the team and board worked together on for about a year, for how we will get to more homeostasis level, where we're granting wishes faster and the referrals coming in so they can be caught up and we can be much more efficient and cost effective. Because right now we can only grant as many a year as the revenue we raise. So we are, last year we granted 165, and we're hoping this year to do between 180 and 200. But it's also just the timing of when a child needs their wish. And, you know, in 21, the things that everybody wanted that we couldn't get were travel trailers, ATVs, puppies, everything that everybody else was buying. And so there have been a lot of changes in just the supply chain, and we just continue to adapt and prepare and be ready to deliver the wishes as efficiently as possible.
That's awesome. And thinking of some just different leadership, who are some other mentors that came along, and how do you identify who you're going to help and lead? 'Cause I hear great things about just your leadership skills. How are you passing some of those things on? So maybe who are some other the great leaders that have helped you, and any words of wisdom from them? And then who are you helping as you go forward?
You know, I have been lucky to find individuals with different, very specific skill sets, and make sure to learn from them. And some I have more of an official, hey, believe I can learn from you. I would really like it if you would mentor me, and here's what I see that looking like. And others just become unofficial. I have a really fantastic memory of coming in and meeting with you and Ross and sitting at your own office, that wood table.
Yep.
And I remember you calling me Sunshine when I left, and it was just so happy. And then every time after you, whenever you saw me in public, you would greet me. Not every big leader in the metro takes their time to come shake hands and give a hug to somebody who's very low on the totem pole, and you just recognize my energy. And I remember always thinking, I want to be like Ed and be able to like recognize other people's just like optimism or what their superpower is, because it matters to a person when they're being positively recognized. And so like you
that's
taught that to
awesome.
me very early on. And so I like to pull pieces from people, and I never asked for your permission, but that's was the thing you taught me right away. And I also really love being able to help younger individuals, especially women, because, I don't golf, and I know what that means for other young women who have tried golfing like me, are horrible at golfing like me. I'm, much better like in the clubhouse, but I want to help bridge that gap where possible. And anytime I can show up and get it on the calendar, but I make sure I'm very clear, like, do you want a friendship or do you want a mentorship? Because it doesn't always feel very good. And I've been lucky to have key people say to me, hey, that statement on the news wasn't clean. You could have done a better job, or, oh, that was really good. It's a little bit of both, and you have to be ready for both. And that's not friendship. That's true mentorship.
That's a great point. And the mentors, the ones that you have the relationship with too, end up becoming truth sayers for you, that when they do tell you something, it's coming from, as Chick Herbert says, a statement of or a place of positive intent. But if you just ask someone, hey, how'd my talk go, or how'd this go? Oh, that was great. And it's kind of fluff, and you're like, okay, but I really want feedback. And it's finding those people that will, you can go to and say, what would you improve? How would you change this? And then you really get that, that strong feedback where you sometimes tough to hear,
Oh, yes.
but you're like, positive intent though.
Always. And that takes trust, and building that ahead of time, or just setting the prerequisite that this is how it will work and here's what to expect. That goes a long way. And I tell anyone who has a mentor, and I say, when's the last time they gave you constructive feedback? And they're like, oh, they haven't. Then we have a conversation about that. They're not helping you. And you need to ask for that.
It's just a friendship. So hopefully everyone heard that where Sarah said she'll ask, the people that she's helping, or they mentioned they have a mentor, and she said, when was the last time they gave constructive feedback? And it can be something as simple as how you carried yourself in that room. How did you, the interactions that you had, did you make eye contact? Different things is so important that people are picking up on, and professionals like Sarah can see those things and provide that help. Now, you also said something really interesting. When you ask someone for help, you, instead of just saying, will you help me? It sounds like you came to them. When I say a plan, it wasn't, that kind of comes up, but you said, here's what it could look like. Like you gave them an idea of was it like the time commitment or what would be beneficial? Tell me how you approach people, because the fact that you didn't leave it open-ended, probably the person appreciated it and said either yes or no based on what you were asking them to do. Is that correct?
Yes. And it would depend on the person, but some I have asked, can we have lunch once a quarter, or can we jump on a phone call, or can you just monitor digitally with my mayor role because you don't live local, and it would be very helpful to me. It just depends on what I think would work in their schedule, right? Because everyone's busy, and making sure that I'm asking respectfully, but then also what if they can help me with exactly what I'm looking for. I like to really work with individuals who are very different from me, even different political backgrounds, different where they're from, you name it, and offering perspectives that I have not had the experience of having, and really helping to challenge, especially policy decisions that impact so many people as a mayor, that sometimes can be replicated by other cities when one city passes a policy that other cities think looks good or it matches as a region. You want to make sure you're really thinking through those from a lens that you have probably never experienced.
No, that is true, and I have noticed that about you when I have observed, just because we're in a lot of the similar social settings with the different charity events, is that, when people talk about, the country being divided or, politics obviously, is a big topic right now, you seem to be able to just kind of weave in and out of the different groups, even though, you run as a mayor, they do want to know, okay, well, what is your political affiliation? I've gathered from others that because you're always questioning and trying to understand other people's positions, that allows you to form decisions. Yes, probably some still tied to the political party, but others just based on, no, that was the information I had, and that's what makes sense. Or tell me how you navigate that, because you do have friends really across all spectrums.
And I have so many friends on both sides. And the number one thing I have learned, and I wish this was more prevalent everywhere, is that we are pinned to be this far apart, and we're really this far apart. And I love the local elected officials role because it's nonpartisan, and door knocking, especially, people say, well, what party are you? And I'll say, I will gladly answer, but what role does a party play in a dog barking ordinance, filling your pothole, what day trash gets picked up, working to plan the next park? And people kind of sit back and go, oh, they don't. And I was like, and that's how the city needs to be operated. And it needs to be operated fiscally, responsibly, and with impact and the voice of the residents. And I think when you get to start at that level, you just keep working that way. But I love hearing just from the different perspectives. And I don't know if I quite navigate it like you think. I know I've made a few people very unhappy with my thoughts on some policies, but I do know when I have stood up for things. And I remember going through a circumstance that Mary Sellers actually sat me down and said, are you sure you want to do this? And I said, I will sleep better knowing I marked my name on this and shared fact and reason to a policy. And she said, then do it. And I slept great that night. It made a lot of people mad, but I know that at the end of the day, I made the decision that I believed was the right one and shared my point of view on it.
That is awesome. So you've got 5-6 years at Make-A-Wish. I'm not going to say how long you've been there because that's a great organization and that isn't the question, but you have mayor by the time that term ends at 16, your boys are getting older. Is there a next step? Not that the steps you have taken aren't sufficient, so hopefully that's coming across. But is there other things that you come across that way? Are there other things you think about or different areas that you want to make an impact? What's Sara look like in 5 years if we're having a reboot of this?
Anyone who's in politics knows what Mary Kramer got to do. And I think that's like the gold star for being, a ambassador to a tropical island, right? Barbados. No. But I always like to wonder what that would mean. But I right now see what we can accomplish at Make-A-Wish, and we have a huge trajectory ahead of us, and I'm really excited about that. And, we do have opportunity to do some big things, and so I'm really excited about that. But quite honestly, again, the local government is just so incredible. You can say, we're going to do 100 things in this next year as a team with the council and the staff, and then you do 200 things, and I'm not even making this up. I wonder if, even if I considered the next levels up, if I would have the same satisfaction, because I hear of senators and House members who say, oh, I finally got this one bill passed and it took 4 years. And those are really important bills, but I don't know if I have the patience to work within that. Maybe I can learn that. I don't know, but I do know that I'm always trying to learn and understand because you have to be an active participant participant in your government. And I have learned that so much more than I ever thought I would. And hopefully I'll just continue to learn. And I literally have no idea what next could be, but I'm loving what we're doing. And I do believe Make-A-Wish is the best job in the whole wide world. Like, how many times do you get to say, we helped make a life-changing wish possible? And to work with a team that gets to deliver joy. Like, that's their fun. Like, we just make kids happy and help them fight what they're facing. Like, I don't know where else you get to do that.
Well, and we saw that with Jennifer on our team, whose daughter had a wish, I don't know if it's 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but she's obviously loved everything that you've done. And I hope what people gathered from today is, when Sara was talking about the things that she's done at Make-A-Wish and the Tocqueville Society, that was an accurate statement I made, where some of the best leaders I've ever seen have been in that nonprofit space. They're affecting and impacting change differently. They might not get the notoriety. That's why a little bit disappointing when I heard you say, yeah, some people don't talk to me when I was in a certain role or different things, because, I mean, Ross and I both just recognize not only you, but others there at United Way, and just the people in the nonprofit, that we want to elevate them and stuff. So there are tremendous leaders there. And again, going back to, the things that you did and learned as a mayor and continue to learn, just shape so many things going forward. So take those hardships, the adversity, as best you can in stride. Right. Know that they're sharpening and shaping you for something probably bigger and greater, making those shoulders stronger,
right?
So you can handle that. And then I would just say, is there anything else you would like to end with for our viewers out there? Anything else you want to leave with, or any pearls of wisdom, or anything else that you want to just say, Sara?
Well, I know that you guys as a team attract a lot of younger individuals with your energy and how you are inviting them into the conversation. And because of that, I hope they are watching, and I've just encouraged them that if they're looking to really stretch and grow, look at what they can do for a nonprofit and, be a volunteer. It will give them opportunities that they may have never had. And the same with their local communities. Both of those are very parallel tracks. And I think that's why I've been able to blend them both, but they will sharpen your toolbox in a way you could have never expected, and give you the opportunities to help those individuals say they've had a specific example or work experience for that next job. And it will just help them move up if they're not able to otherwise have the experience that they're needed in their full-time job. So I just can't recommend not recognizing those opportunities when they exist.
That is a great one to end on, because so many people here and other people we know do volunteer for different committees. Whether we say United Way, which tends to have more opportunities there as you work up, because they have different layers with the emerging affluent group and different things. And I know Trent and Scott and others have all been on, different committees. So for those of you listening, it's a great place to learn and to develop your skill set. And when you're on that committee, especially if you're new, when I say they don't expect a ton right out of the gate, they know there's a learning curve, and you can see that. But we've actually used that as a, part of their development of saying, you need to be able to work outside of McGill-Jungie on, different things. And so I think that's a great one to end with there on that side. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today and for this episode. If you like what you've heard and seen, just make sure you're clicking the buttons of like, subscribe. I actually don't know what that means. Kim tells me to say that. I guess there's something to do at the end, during, etc. But want to thank you again for coming on today, Sara. And this is Ed McGill signing off for Leadership with Ed. And have a great day, everyone. Thanks, Sara.